Shalom, giving all praises to Yahawah, Yahawashi, Rawchaa, Qadash. Shalom to the hopeful elect out there. And I'm going to entitle this video, it's going to be a quick one. And I did videos like on the same topic, but I'm going to do another one. And this video is going to be entitled, All High Holy Days were based upon the new moon, including the Sabbath. Now, even Edomite scholars know this. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read this from the Zanzibar Bible Dictionary. As you can see right here, the Compact Bible Dictionary. And also, I'm going to read from the New International Dictionary of Biblical Archaeology. That's a mouthful, as you can see. Oh, these, by the way, these so-called Kemetic teachers, you know, the House of Consciousness and all that, the information that they spew out when they do their lectures or their debates, everything that they got it from, you know, Edomites, so-called Europeans. One of the major guys, the first name that you mentioned in archaeology, because archaeology started in 1717. It's in the book. I'm just going by memory. 1717, and then as the years progressed, you know, they pretty much prior to 1717. Let's say this 1699, 1700. This science called archaeology, you know, was not that talked about. It wasn't a big deal, but it was the key year was 1717. I believe that's when, during that time period, when you had these different Edomites in the land of Palestine and Egypt, you know, you had a lot of these so-called historians during the time of Napoleon, when he had occupied Egypt. So you had guys that went with him. It's all in this book. These guys were what you call today archaeologists and, you know, historians. And so everything that all you so-called black Egyptologists, people that are part of the black conscious community, everything that you got from so-called white people. Then you mention these names. One name that comes to mind is I hope I'm saying it right, Cheikh Anta Diop, which I believe he came from Nigeria, if my memory serves correctly, and he had to study. He had to go into African studies. Oh, African studies was something. American African studies was set up by a so-called European white man. So when you go to study your African history, that's based on what the so-called white man. That's their information that they're giving you. And when Cheikh Anta Diop wanted to learn, you know, about black consciousness, the way the Kemetic studies and so forth, he had to go to France because it was big at that time in France. Remember, Napoleon came out of France, and his job was to conquer certain areas, and one of the places that he conquered was Egypt. So anyway, let me get back into the subject. Get back into this. Maybe for a minute. Let me do this so I don't lose the page. So for you brothers out there that you know, that say that the Sabbath is based upon Friday, sundown, Saturday, sundown, because the scriptures say 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh is a Sabbath of rest. And then you go, the first scriptures that come to mind is Leviticus 23. You can start from the first verses around about the 5th, 6th verse. I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself. Don't take my word for it, read it. And then you'll say, okay, 6 days shall work be done, and 7 days, the Sabbath of rest. So the Sabbath starts at the 6th day at evening. So what is the starting point? So then you'll go outside the Bible and you'll say, oh, what you do is whatever country you live in, you get a calendar and you find out the first day of the week and you count up until the 6th day of the week, and then the 6th day at evening, and the 7th day is a Sabbath. So in America, all Sabbaths are based upon Friday sundown and Saturday sundown, which the Israelites didn't follow no calendar. They didn't grab a calendar from the Egyptian Empire. You know, when they left the so-called Egypt, they didn't say, well, let me grab a couple of calendars, because they didn't understand the concept of the Sabbath, because guess what? They were in slavery. In the American slavery, you rested on a Sunday. You can say, well, no, I don't rest on Sundays, I rest on Saturdays. That's the real Sabbath. The white man to beat your damn ass, he got you working all day Saturday, and then you got to go to church on Sunday, because that's the Christian, the Renaissance Christian Sabbath, which really goes back to Constantine, because he was a pagan. He was a Jake and a pagan. So you were introduced to the high holy days, the new moon. The Sabbath was the first one. The Passover was the second, because the Passover came in the springtime, so it was based upon the beginning of the year, which was the springtime. So that's why the Lord, every high holy day in Leviticus 23 is all based upon from the day or 14th day at evening, 15th day at evening, the 9th day at evening. This day at evening is when you keep your Sabbath, keep your Day of Atonement. Or this is the Feast of Weeks. Or this is the Passover. That was all given to you in the wilderness, and it was all based upon days. On this day at evening, what is the starting point? The Most High didn't say, okay, now grab the Egyptian calendar, and then you count from the first day of the Egyptian calendar, you count 14 days. No, it was all based upon the moon. So now I'm going to read something from here. Matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? Let me do this. This right here is an actual ancient Hebrew calendar, and this is dated, according to them, it says a Giza calendar, an inscription in ancient Hebrew, which is Rawchaa Qadash, and you'll see it in a minute. Script engraved on limestone tablet, 10th century BC. So we're talking about 1,000 years before the birth of Yahawashi. About 1,000 years before the birth of Yahawashi. BC, before Christ, or before the, like they say BC now, before the Common Era, but BC means before Christ. The inscription records the annual cycle of agricultural activities. It says replica, so this is an actual replica, courtesy Israel Department of Antiquities and Museums. Okay, so it says right here, I'm going to show you this. So this is why we here at Great Millstone and Sakari and Men of Valor, we go by the Sabbath based upon the new moon. Not based upon a calendar that you get at a drugstore. So let me read this. So it says calendar, right? It says originally the Hebrew, we're talking about us, talking about the Israelites, because there's many Hebrews. Esau are Hebrews too. It said originally the Hebrews had no means of, they should have said Israelites, no means of accurate calendrical determinations marking the passing of time only by reference, the only calendar that they had, reference to lunar or solar month. You know, one day from another day based upon the sun going down. Sun going down, that's the ending of one day and the beginning of the next day. The sun comes up. The sun goes up, the sun rises and eats and sets in the west. If it does it 7 times, that's 7 days. So it says a reference to lunar or solar months or to the seasons of the year. So they knew when winter was coming because everything was based upon the first, the moon, the new moon, which is a dark moon. They knew by the seasons which knew. They counted everything. You know, they recorded. They said, here's the new moon. We keep the Passover. Another new moon come in. You see the moon wax and wane. Another moon come in. That was the second month. Another moon, that was the third month. So you knew, because you were looking in the skies. You had recorders recording everything among Israel. And that's why they made that calendar. Because you know a cycle, you know, you got 12 moon cycles. So they knew when it was time to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Because that was from the first moon in the springtime going into the 7th moon, which is the memorial of blowing the trumpet. That will be the 7th moon of the year, or the 7th moon cycle. So let me read this. It says, the Hebrews had no means of accurate calendrical determination marking the passing of time only by reference to lunar or solar months. So the only calendar they had was the divine calendar that the Most High put up in the heavens. So how you going to say, oh, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown? And you're in danger of taking away from the scriptures, because we broke it down to you right. Yeah, but Ariana 7 taught it. Ariana 7 were going off. And had I spoke to him, he's been together, and I pulled him to the side, Ariana would have said, yep, you're right. That's how we're going to have to keep the Sabbath. Scriptures speak about their fear toward me is taught by the tradition of men. Well, we do it this way, so you got to do it that way. But wait, that goes against the scripture. Well, if you don't like it, you can hit the door. That's why we're here, brother. Most High pushed the 7 to the side. And I'm not saying it in a negative way, but they did their job, and we're here to be the teachers. I didn't say that. Now somebody's gonna say, see, you heard what that nigga Tahar said. He said that the Most High set him up in GMS. And the reason why they up there in that seat is because this is what Tahar said, that the Most High pushed Ariana and them out the way. He put him to death. He pushed him out the way. He bugged them all out. No, I didn't say it that way. The scriptures say others have entered into your labor. So we had to take the torch and we had to keep teaching. We can't say, well, the 7 is they ain't teaching. So and a lot of you niggas are like that. A lot of you guys that are in the camp, that have a camp leader, if your camp leader, he disappears, he doesn't do the work, guess what? You ain't going to do the work. You're not going to take that, what do you call it? the baton. You know, you're not going to take that torch and run with it. And all you guys that have fallen off, what was you supposed to do? You're supposed to fall off and keep teaching, and not say, well, my teachers went off on this and they went off on that, and I'm going to show you the right way to do it. What winds up happening to all of them? They're there for a while, then they disappear, you know? So it says, and I'm going to say this about the Quran, this guy, this clown, this guy, the man on the horse, general, I got to get used to saying it. So there's two generals now, General Yahanan and General Nathaniel. He did every week he hits on Revelation 13. Now he's got a new one. Oh, the woman, she got the mark in her hand and her forehead, and it was laughable. And all of us made counter videos to that. He's going to be found out that he's deadly wrong, that he's wrong. So this is all I got to read. It says all they had was the reference. The days was the lunar or solar months, or to the seasons of the year, because you knew 4 more moons before the winter comes in. You knew that. In patriarchal times, the year may have been reckoned from the what? Spring, but after the Ammon, how do you see that? Amarna age, I gotta look that up. It seems to have commenced in the autumn. It seems to have commenced in the autumn with the 7th month. That's Exodus 23 and 16. Exodus 23 and 16. It says, once Canaan had been conquered, right, because we were living in the land of Canaan, the West Semitic lunar calendar was followed. 1 Kings 4, verse 7. I'm not going to read it. This necessitated a periodic intercalation to make up the difference between a lunar and a solar year. So a solar year would be, in the ancient world, work out to about 360. It's really not 360, but it's about 360. See, Esau got it all messed up. They say 365. It's really, and it's not really even 360. I'm not going to get into that now. It says the influence of Canaanite names for the month, but they were going off. All you had to do is call the first month, the second month, the third month, because that's originally what they had. It was the first month, the 14th day at evening. The second month, then they added these names to it, Nisan and so forth. So that's all I'm going to read on that. So there's a book. If you can get it, you look hard enough for it, you can get this book. So let me read a little of this and I'll close. This is the new compact. Okay, calendar, right? During the biblical period time was reckoned solely on astronomical observations. They didn't go to 7-Eleven and pick up a calendar and put it on a tree. Took a tack and hooked it on the tree, and they put the pages back. They didn't do that because they didn't have that. The Egyptians didn't have no calendar that you can buy from a gift shop. What the Most High did when He gave us our high holy days, He gave us our high holy days. And when do we leave Egypt? We left Egypt in the springtime. He gave us the high holy days in the wilderness. So for 40 years we were practicing the high holy days. So what do people say? Oh, you got to keep the Passover in Jerusalem. Well, that's what they did back then. But for the first 40 years, where did we keep the Passover? We kept it in the wilderness. And the rest of the high holy days. So it says, calendar, during the biblical period time, during the Bible period time, was reckoned solely on astronomical, meaning stars, the sun, the moon, and stars, observation, days. The days is measured by what? By the sun. Months or moons. And years were determined by the what? By the sun and the moon. 7 sun cycles go, you know that was 7 days. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. The moon represents a moon cycle, which they call a month. That's why Esau uses the term month. It means moon. And the moon doesn't follow the calendar. The calendar is supposed to follow the moon. It says, was determined by the sun and moon. Days of the week were not named by the Jews or the Israelites, but were designated by ordinal numbers. And I don't have to read anymore, but it gives you some more information. So, you know, if you want to be real about this thing, you got to teach that. And another thing, that don't follow no guy that's teaching that the new moon is a full moon. That man is delusional, man. He's got problems, you know. He just woke up one day, decided that the new moon is a full moon, had his people following, they blindly follow it, man. A couple of them bucked up against it, but they follow it, you know. So, and I didn't just say what it is, the new moon and the Sabbath is based upon the new. I didn't just say that. I proved it. I proved it in the scriptures. You know, when you go to Leviticus 23, when you read down from the first verse, the first day that you sanction as being a holy day is the Sabbath. And it gives you the day when it's done. So what's the starting point of that day? If we're supposed to do it 6 days, from what starting point? The starting point is the new moon. And remember, they were given those high holy days in the wilderness. And guess what? The sun came up in the wilderness, and the moon came up in the wilderness, and you saw the stars. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.